You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be talking about the second ODI between England and India. In the first ODI, it was the Bumrah show. In the second ODI, it was an equally good and legendary bowler that came to the fore, Reece Topley, with a sixer for himself, 6 for 24, blew India away. And it's a fairly similar story, to be honest. 246, we 146. Only one side could win that match for at least the last 25 overs or so. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Max Rowe Brown. How you doing, Max Rowe Brown?
Hello. Yeah, very well. Very well, thank you. Nice to see that no sooner was Virat Kohli back in the Indian lineup, India succumbed to a defeat. That's the story I'm choosing to go with about this particular game.
I think it's probably the only takeaway that we should focus on, isn't it? Right, Max, messages for the listeners.
Yes, Twitter and Instagram at the Cricket Pod to get in touch and follow us on social media. Keep up with our nonsense that we consistently spout through the Twitter sphere. I say we. It's usually Ross doing shock jock Ross and Jack being sarcastic and trying to goad people. Both very good at those particular jobs, it has to be said. And patreon.com/the Cricket Pod to support us directly from as little as £4 a month.
It's a really good deal. You get a bunch of stuff, Discord, extra shows, etc. Max, what happened yesterday?
Well, yesterday, India won the toss and put England in, perhaps sniffing a repeat of the collapse that saw England's calamitous defeat at the Oval, back at Lord's, of course, the scene of England's most famous one-day international victory. And there was a fair bit going on with the ball, but this time, rather than England completely falling in on themselves, they just about managed to hang on somehow. Jason Roy with 20-odd, Johnny Bairstow 38 meant that England got a bit of a start. But then came in Yuzi Chahal to take, the first four by a leg spinner at Lord's since the, was it in England, since the 1999 one-day World Cup final, I think it was, which was Shane Warne doing the business there. But either way, England were staring down the barrel a bit at 100 odd for 6, but the lower order came to their rescue once again and managed to, put up a score at least that was bowlable at. Not one that you think was going to win the game, but certainly one that would make it last slightly longer than it did in the game at the Oval. But turns out it was India's turn to collapse with the bat, as you mentioned, Jack. Reece Topley in the business, 4 consecutive maidens in the first 4 overs of the India chase, setting things up nicely. And despite a little bit of resistance from Sky, Pandya, and Jadeja, it was pretty much over, as you said, from about halfway through the Indian innings, and 1-1 going into the final game.
Yeah, we've got to decide on our hands on Sunday. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the podcast. Max, let's go to England's batting, because that happened first. Is there a problem here with the number 5 position? Not just Jos Buttler specifically. There's definitely not a problem with Jos Buttler. If you think about the very good England team, 2015 to 2019, that could sort of regularly post above 300. In my mind, what England had in that era with Root, Stokes and Morgan were 3 players capable of scoring about 5 and over without taking a huge amount of risk. Like everyone thinks that England just went at 8 and over the whole way through those games. It isn't quite what happened. They went out like they went off like a train. They'd have watch a few early up. Then they'd really take on the second half of the power play. And then Root and Stokes and Morgan
just keep it ticking.
Would keep it ticking, but at a very high rate. Sort of, instead of it being 4 runs and over, a real nerdling, they put some pressure on. But the sort of great thing about all of them was their ability to do that at a strike rate, which was high, whilst not really endangering their wickets too much. And then, the second half of the innings, from overs 30 onwards, it would just be a T20. They'd go mad. I wonder with Buttler at 5 whether they're missing one more player who's capable of ticking along at that high rate without taking a risk. What do you think of my thesis?
I think it's a really interesting point. I hadn't really considered that, but I'm just looking at that lineup now, and you've got, Stokes, Butler, Livingston, 4, 5, 6. I mean, that's, one paced probably isn't the right phrase to use to describe it, but you know what I mean. Like it's pretty much all one gear, which is sixth essentially.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing that brings back those sorts of comments of Livingston. When Livingston got out, it was described on TMS as brainless because it just hit a 6 and a 4 before that. So why are you trying to hit a 6 again? But that's the way Livingston plays, and I guess that's the sort of the structure of the side you're talking about. I think it's a really interesting point. It's I suppose the question that I would go back to you on is, who do you think? Well, would we replace someone to fill in that number 5 role? And if we did, who would come in and who would fall out? Like, because you look at that side and like you've got David Willey at 8, Craig Overton at 9.
Side
for England's first choice team, but it'll be like Chris Wokes or someone like that, and you've got so much batting there. So can you maybe afford to do that a bit more than you would otherwise have done with that deep batting lineup?
Well, possibly you can, and I don't know if this theory has been tested to the fullest extent, but what have we seen? We've seen 5 ODIs this summer. England have collapsed in 3 of them, twice against India, once against the Netherlands. I am more and more sure that this ball is different to the 2015-2019 cycle. I think this is it's a more balanced cricket ball. It swings, it seems, for a lot longer. It didn't swing so much actually yesterday, but there was seam movement the whole way through both innings.
Yeah.
Reece, that's why
Lord Slope came into play, didn't it?
Well, that's why Craig Overton bowled a spell that was almost unplayable. Like it was ridiculous. Craig Overton should have, in 2015 to 2019, Craig Overton is not bowling a spell, which hold on, let me get the numbers up, because it was preposterous. Craig Overton 7 overs, 22 for none. And I think Mohammed Shami hit him around right at the end of that spell as well. So it actually was at 1 point better than that. Hey, he's got a 7 on the bounce, like no change, just run in and bowl at 3 and over, Craig Overton. Like that it seems unusual. Topley as well, bowled a really good spell, but there's no way that anybody could claim that he wasn't getting a little bit of help out of that surface. And I think if you look at that compared to the last World Cup cycle, I don't think we saw bowlers getting that help out of the pitch. Now, if we add that factor to the sort of one pace nature of 4 to 7 of the England lineup, and I am a little bit concerned that there is a weakness. I don't think this batting lineup is as good as 2015 to 2019, because I think Morgan, we remember the last 18 months. We don't remember
peak.
We don't remember it. We don't remember him averaging. I'd look at this. He was averaging like 45, 50 in 2018-19.
Well, England's leading run scorer in one-day and T20s.
At a strike rate of 100. Like what that is a guy who's going to bat 50 balls for you and put 50 runs on the board. That's his average contribution to the game. That's amazing. Like that's an awesome contribution. Jos Buttler, his dismissal rate in ODI. So how regularly is he dismissed? 30 balls. That's not that long. That's 5 overs. So you would expect Jos Buttler to if he came in the 20th over, to be out by the 30th over most of the time. That's my concern for England is that it's not particularly stable. Liam Livingstone, similar player. Moeen Ali in ODI cricket has a pretty average record. Although I looked into this and it's I think he averages 25 at a strike rate of 100. There's a big split between what he can do. He's excellent after the 40th over. Before the 40th over, virtually useless. But you probably do want somebody who can hit in that number 7 role. I don't know, Max. It's a really tricky one, like, because what we're talking about here is bringing in someone like Dawid Malan for Liam Livingstone or Moeen Ali, and that is a controversial.
On paper,
take.
It sounds insane.
That is a controversial take, but I think we need. We're going to play a lot more ODIs in the next few weeks. We've been through a period where I think England have only played 20 since the World Cup or something like that. Played 60 in between the last 2 World Cups. So we're going to get a lot more, and I think we'll see whether this will work. But for my money, based on what I've seen so far this summer, certainly against the better bowling lineups, it's a little bit too T20.
Yeah, that's it. It is almost a bit like England are treating 50 over cricket like a really long T20.
Yeah, at a time,
if you're going to do that, you need, like, say you've got your finisher who comes in the 14th over or something. You've got Joss Butler. You don't want him to come in before the 30th over, really, do you? But he's at 5, so he's going to.
Butler says he wants to bat 5. Look, Butler will sometimes come in at 50 for 3 and score 120. Yeah, like it will. There will be moments, and England are, they're never going to be a bad team with the amount of talent they have in the top 7. Like, look what happened yesterday. Like, you could half the people probably written that game off at 105, 148 to 6. Even when Mo and Ali was out and England hadn't made it to 200. Even when the game was over at 247, you were like, that game's over. And then it turned out it was a really tricky pitch to bat on, and England, even though they did it slightly unconventionally, had managed to put a good score up. But I think there's some food for thought around this, well, particularly at a time.
The England sort of domestic cricket calendar is kind of pushing England to treating one-day cricket like an extended T20 anyway, sort of just out of necessity. Because if you think about like the One-Day Cup, which is now a development competition, essentially, you don't have a base of evidence to check whether guys coming through are going to be good at one-day cricket. You can be okay, they're really good at T20s, they're really good at the 100, or they're really good in the county championship. And then from that, you have to make an assessment about whether they get into the England one-day side. And I would imagine you're going to lean towards more the explosive T20 players in filling that gap. And so maybe that's a route we're just going to see us go down. It'll be it's certainly one to keep an eye on.
You're certainly not going to see a lot of examples of people playing those 50 or 50 type innings, or being able to produce that do what Joe Root does, basically. Do what Root or Stokes sort of can do, but maybe slightly less well. That Stokes is probably more 40 or 40, and then Morgan again sort of a 45 or 45. You actually do need a battery of those guys to cruise through those middle overs, who can play all the different types of bowling relatively well, so they're not just going to get busted by some difficult matchup, and sort of allow some of the other players to play around them. Because if England are going to fall in a heap regularly, then Jayton Roy and Bairstow can't bat like they're batting at the top of the order. Like if England are a candidate for being bowled out sub 200, if they're 3 down in the first 10, then you can't try and get 100 in the first 10, and that changes the whole game plan. Interesting. I think it's an interesting time. What I would say as well is that India bowled. We talked a lot about England there. We talked a lot about how good India were in the bowling in the first match. The India were pretty good bowling again here. Chahal. There was a little bit of a debate, Chahal v Bishnoi, wasn't it? Or there is a bit of a debate, Chahal v Bishnoi. I just can't see.
Well, on form,
world Chahal is the best bowler.
Bishnoi had one pretty decent season in the IPL. I mean, last year he was pretty bad. This year rather. It's pretty bad. And Chahal's he's been around. He knows the game. He's done it loads of times. He's really good. Just pick Chahal, obviously.
Yeah. And he did bowl well. It's a decent collection of guys to get out as well. It's like the first time Root's been out playing the sweep shot since since
the Titanic sank.
Yeah, it was more or less. It's ages. Bairstow's got a funny one, wasn't it? I don't know. He just sort of missed the ball.
I think he just didn't get the length right, did he? It was too full.
Yeah.
A bit of a weird one. I think what Chahal did so well yesterday was just varying his pace and sort of flight, and I think that's what did for Root and what did for Bairstow, but sort of those variations.
Yeah. And then Mo, pretty unlucky. He was the other big team. Yeah. Not unlucky, but
long boundary.
47. It hasn't hit 50 for a while, but that's not really his role. I mean, like I was saying, he is. I looked at the data for all players to face like 200 balls in the last 10 overs of ODIs, and he is like second best. I think Dhoni was above him. I think Dhoni was above him for strike rate. Dhoni averaged like 50 in that spell as well. So you got the master, and then it was Mo and Ali averages 148 in the last 10 over. Not averages, strikes at 148. Yeah. And it's like that's That's very good.
That's all right, isn't it?
Like, yeah, and it's 160 in the last 5. So it's
It's
weird.
a pretty solid T20 strike rate. That
number 7 is a really weird position to assess, I think, in ODI cricket, because his actual raw numbers look pretty average. But then you look at what he can do in the right situation, and the situation that you actually want him to bat in, and you're like, well, we're not going to find someone better.
And you also have to remember that there was that period where we messed around. You know, we tried opening with him. He batted at 3. He's been around.
I was looking specifically at his number 7.
Okay.
But anyway, India's innings. Let's talk about Topley. You're the Surrey fan. He was pretty good, wasn't he?
Yeah, really good. He has been. Well, I mean, since he had that back injury, and almost looked like he was going to have to quit the game. Since sort of rehabbing and coming to the wonderful Surrey boys, and getting back in, he has been genuinely really good. But England's ODI men's record figures probably not what you'd expect.
Is that really what it was?
Yeah.
The record, wow. He did. I will say this. He did bowl really, really well. I think it was a pitch that suited England's bowling attack. Lots of tall guys who sort of try and hit the deck.
Yeah.
And you had the Lord slope in full effect. I'm going to keep saying it until someone tells me that I'm wrong. These balls are different, and and they were lively. I mean, he was a bit too much to handle. Actually, it was like watching Kyle Jamieson bowl against India in a Test match.
Yeah,
like it was just coming through a little bit harder, a little bit more bouncy than people thought. Well, he had Shikhar caught behind, didn't he? Not Hardik. Surya Kumar Yadav
chopped on.
It actually looked really good, and then basically got taken by surprise by how much one bounced. Chopped on, and then he picks up a couple of wickets at the end, doesn't he, to blow away the tail, which was good to see, because I did think that England's bowling attack might have difficulty. I thought they were going to win the match, but I thought we might have to watch the whole of the last 10 overs with Chahal and fucking Bumrah nurdling the ball here and there.
No, they did the right thing for once, didn't they? They bowled full at the stumps, and it worked.
Yeah,
which,
we also saw
took the India lineup a bit too long to work out.
We also saw, we might as well do Kohli now. But Kohli, I think, got one that basically was done by the bounce. Like Willie got one to come through. Kohli was playing it on the front foot, probably shouldn't have been playing it on the front foot, and it's a reasonably thick edge caught by the wicket keeper. So I think perfect storm for England's bowlers, and they took advantage of it, just like India did in the first match. We talked about England's batting lineup. India's batting lineup, is there any weakness here?
Well, it's almost it's not a million miles from the same problem of what you were describing for England when you got Pant of 4, Sky and Hardik Pandya. I mean, they're all phenomenal cricketers, but I mean, for me, the key difference in those sides is the depth, isn't it? Mohammed Shami at number 8. It's not no, absolutely not.
It doesn't work. It's actually really ugly.
Can't do it. They've got 2 number 11s in Chahal and Krishna, a number 10 in Bumrah, and Shami at 8. It's not. Yeah. I mean, that was it. Once Hardik was out, it was like, this is game over. Like this.
Yeah, it's. I was actually thinking more up the top of the order, but I think that is an important point as well. England basically saved themselves because they had batting down the order.
Yeah.
I mean, Willie got 41. Even Craig Overton was able to hang around for sort of 18 balls while the score ticked over. It wasn't scoring that quickly, but it was runs that help.
Yeah.
That didn't happen really for India, who although I mean, they were in a chase and did need to score at 6.5 and over. So it's facing 18 balls for 10 runs probably doesn't help much there either. I was thinking more at the top of the order. So Rohit Sharma got 50 in the first match. I think there's 2 or 3 declining batters in at least white ball cricket. I think Rohit's probably got it in Test matches at the moment. Maybe makes it into your World 11 actually as an opener. But I'm less and less convinced by him in white ball cricket. I don't see the dynamism that used to sort of be there. Shikhar Dhawan's a really interesting one. he's looked ugly in both matches. I mean, he could have been out about 77 times in the first ODI.
Yeah.
And then we've got Virat Kohli, Max, haven't we? Who comes back into the team, gets 16, plays 3 really, really great shots for 4. And everyone's like, oh,
he's back. Here we go.
He's never been out of
Today's
form.
the day.
He's never been out of form. He's just been unlucky for 3 straight years. And then he's out the exact same way he's been out for the last 3 years, trying to drive a ball on the up through extra cover that isn't there to be driven. Does a bit too much, gets big on him, and he snicks off. He's taken a rest against West Indies. I don't know. I mean, like, what more can we say about this?
Is it 1,000 days yet?
I think it's over, isn't it? Isn't it August 2019?
I think it was November.
Okay. Well, it's
but
one
it's,
of the 2.
It's getting there. It's definitely getting there. Yeah. Well, the longer it goes on, the weirder it gets. But it's like sunk costs fallacy now, isn't it? You can't drop him because he's going to score 100 eventually.
I mean, I think in fairness, in ODI cricket, there's still a pretty compelling case to play Virat Kohli. I think he's got some runs recently. He also has like the best record of any player to ever play the game. At least in terms of batting average. What is his batting average? Let me just get this up. 58, strike rate at 92.
It's all right, isn't it?
It's all right. Yeah, it is. So I think if you're going to give him rope, this is where you sort of you have to give him the rope.
I think so.
Like I don't know. We saw Shreyas Iyer. Is Shreyas Iyer going to do much more than a slightly past Virat Kohli? I mean, I think if we're going to see the co-naissance, we need a better word for that than the co-naissance.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
We'll work on that. Yeah,
co-ducks. Then I think it will be led by something that happens in ODIs. I think that's the format that his game still suits the most. Like the wobble ball has reduced his effectiveness in Test cricket a little bit, and the game moving on has reduced his effectiveness in T20 cricket. But ODI cricket isn't that much different to how it used to be.
Yeah,
balls might move a little bit more, but I'd still suspect that maybe he doesn't average 60, maybe he averages 45. Like I think he'd still be a pretty useful player there. Yeah, kind of weird. I had another point to follow that up with, but I can't remember what it was. Did you have anything to say on Kohli?
No, I certainly agree on the one day thing in terms of Kohli. He's supreme in this format, and I don't see why you would try something else in his place. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from with the openness. But I wrote Sharma's the captain now, so he ain't going anywhere.
I mean, for the same reasons I just gave for giving Kohli a bit of rope, you could probably give Rohit Sharma in ODI cricket a little bit of rope. Has had a career that puts him in the frame for certainly as one of India's all-time openers, potentially in a kind of all 11 thing. Maybe he's in the B team or something like that, but he's had an amazing career in the format. So a little bit of rope maybe due there too. Do you think, here's a question for you, Max, and then we'll maybe wrap up the show. Do you think we're seeing the best 2 ODI teams in the world playing each other at the moment? Maybe England would upgrade their bowling slightly, but this is probably close to India's A team. Well, where do you think that we're looking at potentially the 2 that will face off next year?
At their strongest, then I think probably, yeah. I think England's batting, we've got, when we're saying that the potential weakness with England's batting is that whoever's batting number 5 is too powerful and aggressive. That's it's not normally the kind of thing that you're looking at as a massive structural weakness in a side. And yeah, I mean, this India side is full of talent, and they've got so much to come off the ranks if they do decide to mix things up with the bat. England's bowling in this series isn't what would turn out for a World Cup if everyone is available. So that's maybe where England fall down slightly, but the 2 at their best, I think, would certainly be the top 2.
Who do you think?
Possibly Australia, like one day wise.
I don't know. I think Australia are a bit iffy in one-day cricket, to be honest. I could definitely see a situation where they've got like Labuschagne and Smith and sort of loads of
Yeah, but
and
if there's this
Warner
new ball that's
playing
doing
away.
a bit, suddenly they're gods, aren't they?
Maybe, yeah. But yeah, it is possible. I who do you think's better? Who do you think will win on Sunday?
I think India will win on Sunday again. I think I'm it's the same as what I thought with the T20 series. Really, I think England's, although obviously England's bowling was really good at Lords, I think, like you said, it sort of suited them, and it's a bit kind of one-dimensional in a way. So I think I would back 1-11. I would back India, especially with Jason Roy playing the way he is at the moment. He might get we might see Phil Salt get a go, because Jason Roy needs to go and have a bit of a go in a sauna and just chill out for a bit. I think
that was an interesting point. Somebody actually suggested not dropping Roy, but with this number 5 issue in mind, putting Salt in at the top of the order and moving Bairstow down to 4 and Stokes down to 5, which I think would be an interesting way of solving the problem. Yeah. Albeit that you are basically messing with your best player. But that's what we've done with Bairstow, isn't it? England, they've sort of done that the whole way.
Well, he's a red ball specialist now. So
for what it's worth, I think that the two teams side by side, I think this India team are better. I think England, if they bring in a couple of their bowlers, I think Adil Rashid's a big upgrade on somebody, and I think Jofra Wood or Wokes, all four. I mean, all four of them arguably could play. David Willey, I was wondering, may have gone ahead of Wokes.
I think David Willey is really underrated in terms of his usefulness for England.
But Archer, I think Wood has another one of those records that doesn't look amazing, and then you look at where he's bowled, and it's all in the overs 20 to 40, and he's England's second best bowler in the last decade there. So it's there's definitely room for Wood. And
again, he's a point of difference, isn't he? That extra pace.
Adil Rashid is England's best spinner. Like it's that's what they've got there. So I think you upgrade that, and then you're looking at two really, really efficient ODI teams.
I think so.
A couple of batting queries, but nothing too major. Final point, Max, I wanted to raise with you was a tweet by Babar Azam.
Oh yeah.
Did you see this?
No.
It was a pic. Oh my God, it's broken the internet. It's got 34,000 retweets, 172,000 likes, 8,000 comments.
It's not bad for cricket.
It's a picture of Babar Azam next to Kohli. Kohli's got his arm around his shoulder. And Babar Azam is saying, "This too shall pass. Stay strong. Hashtag Virat Kohli."
Oh,
that's quite, it's like, I don't know. Part of me thinks that's a nice show of support. Part of me thinks that's Babar Azam. Jibing a little bit. Well, where do you come down on that point?
No, I think it's one of the great batsmen having the back of another great batsman, trying to use sport to transcend political and strife, to put it mildly. And I'm going to give Babar Azam the benefit of the doubt and say that he's being an all-round good guy.
Cool. All right, Max, you've got to go and paint your house. I am going to get on with my day. See you later.